On December 30th, 1990, the Orlando Magic were facing off against the Denver Nuggets. And the Orlando Magic were a new team in their second season, but a star was going to be made this game when their 6'1" point guard, Scott Skiles, went out and put on a show, but not in scoring, but in passing the ball. When he set an NBA record with an unbelievable 30 assists in a single game, showing his masterclass in court vision and basketball IQ, and not caring about scoring, but being a playmaker on the court. It cemented himself in the record book and made him beloved by Magic fans for the rest of his life. Today we're going to dive into how Scott made it to the NBA and the game that he had that changed his career forever. Today on Daily Sports History. Welcome to Daily Sports History. I'm Ethan Reese, your guide as you daily learn more about sports history, increasing your sports knowledge. As today we talk about Scott Skiles, the assist king, at least in this one game. And today's trivia question is, who was the previous record holder for the most assists in a single game prior to Scott Skiles? Now, before we get to the game, we got to know who Scott was and how he made it all the way to the NBA, as he only grew to be 6'1", an average height that if you saw him walking down the street, chances are you may have never noticed who he was. He's just an average-looking guy. You wouldn't think he has the skills that he had. But he grew up in Indiana, which is a basketball-crazed state. I know because I grew up and live in Indiana, and we love our basketball, especially high school basketball. And if you look around the country, and in the entire country, the 5 largest high school basketball gyms are all in Indiana. And in the top 10, we love our basketball in Indiana. So much so that they made a movie called Hoosiers, which kind of mirrored Scott Skiles' life, as he grew up in Northwest Indiana and went to Plymouth High School, which is a smaller school. And in his senior season, he led them in scoring with 29.3 points a game and having multiple 50-point games that season. And he left being the all-time leader in career points for Plymouth. Now, the reason why I say he mirrored the movie Hoosiers is because they went up against Gary Roosevelt, which is a much bigger school than Plymouth. Similar to the movie, it was a small school in Milan taking on Muncie Central. And that is exactly what happened, except in this game and at this time in 1982 when this happened, Indiana high school basketball is still classless, which means no matter the size of your school, you played against everybody for the right for one state championship. Made it a lot harder for smaller schools to win. Like Milan in the movie Hoosiers, the same as Plymouth in 1982. He would go on to win Mr. Basketball for Indiana and sign with Michigan State. As not only could he score, but he could also assist. And he left Michigan State, which is a historically great program, the all-time leader in points and assists, and still holds the record for the most points scored in a single season. But he did have his challenges, as he wasn't this straight-laced kid from a small school. Unfortunately, he got arrested for possession of cocaine and marijuana, and he had enough that it was a felony possession of cocaine. But the charges eventually were dropped on the cocaine, and he pleaded guilty for possession of marijuana, which was a misdemeanor. And later, he would also get arrested for drunk driving and had to spend 15 days in jail. In his senior year, he actually committed a parole violation and had another brief instance in jail. This made it very hard, even though he had so much success at Michigan State, for him to be seen as a higher draft pick. Not only that, he was also on the shorter side, but that didn't mean as much back then, as point guards were smaller, like him, John Stockton, Muggsy Bogues, who had smaller point guards at that time, and it wasn't a big deal. But he didn't get drafted until the 22nd round by the Milwaukee Bucks, where he would spend 10 seasons, making his debut on November 11th, 1986. But he would struggle early in his career to find his place. He was shorter, he had to catch up to the game as it was a faster speed, and he only ended up playing just 13 games his rookie season. And then he would get traded for a second-round pick to the Indiana Pacers, where he was able to play a little bit more, playing 50 games, averaging 4 points and 3.5 assists. And the following year, he would play in 80 games, upping his point total. And then in 1989, the Orlando Magic were a new franchise in the NBA, and they held an expansion draft. Now, an expansion draft is for a new team, and each team that's already in the league keeps certain players safe. They cannot be picked in this draft. So it's usually players at the end of their bench that can be picked by this expansion team. It allows this team to have some veterans on their team and not just start from the bottom of the barrel, picking up anyone off the street to play. It's a good system, and it allows players like him who are younger and not having as much experience to really get a chance to play. And that's exactly what happened. Now, he started mainly as a backup his first season, but he increased his point total to 7.7 points and is averaging 4.8 assists in 70 games. But the following year, he transitioned to a starting role, which really jump-started his career. Averaging 34 minutes a game, he averaged over 17 points and 8 assists a game, which was highlighted by the game he had on December 30th, 1990, against the Denver Nuggets. And this game happened in Orlando, where both the Nuggets and Orlando were struggling this season, as Orlando were in their second season, as each team had only won 6 games this season out of 29, and they were struggling to find their way. And Orlando, being a young franchise, had a lot of young players looking for a chance to jump out. And Denver were led by Paul Westhead, who won a championship with the LA Lakers in Magic Johnson's first year, and had just come out of college, where he led Loyola Marymount to historic highs with his fast run-and-gun offense, which meant there was a good chance this would be a high-scoring event. And Orlando recognized that the Nuggets' weakness was their defense, as they were allowing a league-worst 130 points a game. And this looked like a chance for Scott to take over the offense and use his expert passing to get his guys wide open. So in the first half, Scott really focused on distributing the ball and helped them jump out to a 35-23 lead in the first quarter. And it was a lot of the same in the second quarter. And Scott Skiles finished the first half with 14 assists, as the Orlando Magic led at half 72-49. But the Magic were going on fast break after fast break, setting pick and rolls, moving the ball around, wearing out the defense that was already struggling of the Denver Nuggets in the second half, scoring 38 in the third quarter and finishing the fourth quarter scoring 45, beating the Denver Nuggets 155-138. And the game ended with Scott Skiles scoring 22 points. But that wasn't what was so impressive. It was the 30 assists he had. 7 of his teammates scored in double figures, being led by Terry Cartilage and Jerry Reynolds, who each scored over 25 points as well. It set a record for the highest point total in Magic history and put the Magic on the map and Scott Skiles on the upper echelon of point guards, and would lead Scott Skiles to winning the Most Improved Player award at the end of that season. He would go on to play 3 more years with the Orlando Magic, and even though he was the Most Improved Player, he never really reached that point again. His numbers dropped off the next few years, still being a quality player, but wasn't the potential all-star possibility that he showed that 1990 season. And it didn't help that the Orlando Magic were looking at a new season as they had Penny Hardaway and Shaquille O'Neal coming in, and they were going a different direction at the point guard position. So he moved on to the Washington Bullets and then the Philadelphia 76ers before playing a season in the Greek League for the PAOK before retiring after 10 seasons in the NBA and 1 in the Greek League. He would go on to become a coach of the PAOK before coming over to be an assistant for the Phoenix Suns for 2 years before getting promoted to head coach in 1990, where he'd be a head coach there for 3 years, leading them to the playoffs 2 out of his 3 years, including beating the defending champs, the San Antonio Spurs, in 2000. But it wasn't good enough, so he was fired and would eventually take a head coaching job for the Chicago Bulls in 2003 with little success, and would be fired in 2007 and would get another job with the Milwaukee Bucks, where his team would struggle with injuries, but he would come back to the Orlando Magic in 2005 after being let go by the Milwaukee Bucks to coach 1 season for the team as they struggled, and would step down from his position as he claimed he was not the right person for the job. He struggled as a coach, and he struggled as a player, but he had a lot of success in the league, was able to play 10 years in the NBA, and having the record for the most assists in a game all time is impressive, as the record he beat was Kevin Porter, set in 1978 when he had 29 assists. The previous record before that was 28, which was set by Bob Cousy and Guy Rogers in 1959 and 1963, respectively. And John Stockton, the leader all time in total assists, hit this mark in 1991 and would also hit the mark of 27 and 26 all time. And the closest player to get to this record since 2000 was Rajon Rondo when he was with the New Orleans Pelicans in 2017 when he had 25 assists. It's a record that many think will never be broken, as even arguably the greatest passer of all time, John Stockton, couldn't even break it. What chances do everyone else have? But Scott Skiles was not the greatest passer of all time. He took advantage of a system which allowed him to break the record. Even though he was a great passer and a great player, he wasn't the greatest of all time. But his name will always be in the record books, having 30 assists in a single game, one that may never be broken. I want to thank you for listening to today's episode. If you want more content about the Orlando Magic, check out the Penny and Pops podcast, where Adam and Spencer take you through all matters of Orlando Magic basketball, giving you local strong opinions in the longest running podcast dedicated to the Orlando Magic. And we'll put a link in the description below for you to check them out. And I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you liked it, please make sure you are subscribed wherever you're listening so you do not miss a single episode. And did you catch the answer to today's trivia question? Who was the previous record holder for the most assists in a game prior to Scott Skiles? And the answer is Kevin Porter of the New Jersey Nets when they faced off against the Houston Rockets in 1978, where he had 28, where he had 29 assists.